an underwater alien base. The ocean is a terrifying place filled with scary things. Of course, there are the realistic fears, terrifying sea creatures, the freezing cold water, and the impenetrable darkness. But one of the most horrifying things found underwater is a giant pyramid that UFO hunters believe to be an underwater alien base. As ridiculous as that sounds, just bear with me here for a minute. An alleged alien researcher apparently found evidence of this giant pyramid by using Google Maps. Now, all skeptics will laugh when a self-appointed investigator uses Google to find evidence of aliens. But seriously, what better tool is there for the modern UFO hunter? It was found off the coast of Mexico and apparently measures 8.5 miles, 14 kilometers across its bottom. Some people are saying that even if it's not a base for UFOs to land while visiting our planet, it's still an enormous discovery. If it is indeed a pyramid, it would be the biggest the world has ever seen. And while it's easy to dismiss claims like this as nonsense, there's a bit of sense to the discovery. The biggest coincidence is that it was discovered off the coast of Mexico, near where there are many large Mayan and Aztec pyramids. It could be that there really was an ancient pyramid that was swallowed by the ocean thousands of years ago. However, it could just be a smudge on Google Maps. It could have been even a natural rock formation, with no explanation other than the shifting tectonic plates or a defunct underwater volcano. The truth is that nobody knows, and there have been no legitimate investigations to look into it since its original discovery in 2020. Too many volcanoes. Moving on to something that definitely exists. Check out this terrifying discovery of underwater volcanoes off the coast of Tasmania. Volcanoes are scary for one reason. They shoot hot magma straight out of the mantle of our planet and into the air, where it can destroy settlements and kill humans. It's not something that anyone wants to experience. While mapping the seafloor about 250 miles, 400 kilometers from the coast of Tasmania, scientists have uncovered what they're referring to as a volcanic lost world. It's a chain of volcanic seamounts that loom as tall as around 10,000 feet. To put that in perspective, these volcanoes are about 6 times larger than the Empire State Building. This is a completely unknown ocean ecosystem that has never been explored. The reason this discovery is so scary is that it reminds us that only 20% of the oceans of the world have been mapped and explored. Also, nobody wants a bunch of 10,000-foot, 3,000-meter tall volcanoes exploding underwater. I can't imagine that would be a good thing. It would devastate the local biome and hurt countless animals. According to NBC, the researchers also discovered an abundance of marine animals, such as whales, petrels, and other exceptional beasts of the sea. Skeleton tea party. What's more terrifying than an underwater skeleton tea party? Basically nothing. Well, a man diving in the Colorado River near the border of Arizona and California reported to the La Paz County Sheriff's Office that he had discovered a pair of skeletons sitting in deck chairs and facing each other, with one of them wearing a pair of sunglasses. This is not really something any diver wants to find. Who put the skeletons there in the first place? Were they already dead when they were submerged in the lawn chairs? And where in the name of all that is holy did the skeleton get a pair of sunglasses? The county sheriff's office launched a hunt for these bodies, but they soon discovered that the skeletons were actually fake. It turned out the skeletons were set up for a film promotion. The skeletons had been kept in place because their chairs were tied to rocks, and they weren't actually human skeletons. The police told local news sources they don't believe anyone was trying to scare anyone, and there's no foul play to be investigated. It was simply a stunt for a movie. But it was good enough to fool the diver and the local sheriff, at least for a little while. What's the most exciting thing you've ever found underwater? Did you ever go fishing and turn up a bizarre and disturbing-looking creature? Or perhaps you found human bones or something even more sinister? Tell me about your most shocking underwater adventure in the comments below. Then, remember to subscribe to Talltanic for more awesome videos just like this one. A human baby. A fisherman in New Zealand came upon something absolutely horrifying in the ocean. He'd been checking his fishing lines early in the morning when he saw something rise out of the water. It wasn't a legendary sea beast. At first, he thought it was a porcelain doll. Curious, the fisherman reached into the water and scooped the doll out, only to discover that the doll was actually alive and actually a human baby. However, the baby was so still and so pale that he looked to be made of porcelain. As you can imagine, this guy had no idea what to do. It's not every day that a fisherman finds a baby birthed from the sea. He quickly ran to the nearby holiday camp and informed the manager of the situation. The manager said that he only knew of one woman at the park who had a baby, and so they quickly ran to her tent and asked where her baby was. She'd been asleep at the time, and when she woke up with the camp manager asking about her baby, she realized that her baby was gone. It was her child that the fisherman had encountered bobbing out in the ocean. It looked like the child had woken up very early in the morning, escaped from the tent, and then ran out to the ocean by himself from the camping site. How exactly the baby survived long enough to be picked up by the fisherman is an absolute miracle, and the fact that the fisherman was there at all to spot the child was even more of a miracle. At the end of the day, the baby was perfectly healthy. Mysterious ruins. In the Sea of Galilee, researchers and archaeologists have discovered a strange conical stone pile. That in itself isn't very scary until you figure out what it was used for. While some archaeologists at first assumed the ancient stone structure had been constructed as a fish nursery thousands of years ago, other scientists are claiming it's probably an ancient burial cairn. A researcher for the Israeli Antiques Authority told Live Science that the structure dates back at least 4,000 years. It was likely constructed at a time when sea levels were lower and was eventually flooded. If it wasn't built as a fish nursery, that means it was built as a burial marker. And that means somewhere even deeper are bodies. But how many bodies is anyone's guess. Could this be related to the giant biblical flood of the story of Noah? It's not terribly likely, but maybe explorers will find some evidence that shows the truth behind this mysterious stone and its purpose. The Brooklyn Subway. Most of the things discovered underwater are ancient relics or scary sea monsters. But New Yorkers were shocked back in 2019 when they found a Brooklyn subway station completely flooded. This happened at the G-Train station on Broadway when water appeared to be literally flooding up from the staircase. As you can imagine, this isn't really something you want to see on your way to work in the morning. New York is dangerously close to the coast, and there have been rumors for years that within just 1 or 2 generations, New York will be completely underwater. If you were to stumble upon your local subway station flooded, you might think the end has already begun. Fortunately, the MTA came forward and said they actually flooded it on purpose to test their new flood prevention equipment. NBC New York reported that the MTA was testing a specialized flex gate that would allow a subway to be sealed off in the event of a large storm to prevent flooding. The New York City subway even tweeted, "We're doing this because climate change is real." That in itself should be enough to scare the pants off of you. Chained dugongs. A terrifying and inhuman discovery was made in Indonesia by a couple of tourists. Divers were swimming near the small island of Kokoya when they happened upon a pair of dugongs, which are extremely rare and innocent sea creatures from the manatee family, chained up inside of underwater cages. The divers were obviously furious and they went to go demand answers. They found out that a local fisherman had trapped the dugongs there as a tourist attraction and was asking people for money to take photos of the animals. Obviously, this was absolutely horrendous. The sea creatures appeared to be a mother and her baby. They were separated in different cages, and judging by the horrible cuts and wounds all over them, they'd been abused severely. Luckily, the tourist immediately left the fisherman and posted the videos all over social media, and a wildlife protection organization soon stepped up and released the creatures back into the wild. This is what happens when people are desperate to make a quick buck and have no moral compunction against harming animals. Don't support organizations or people who abuse animals or harm wildlife. Mysterious horror shark. Divers in Switzerland found the most terrifying shark ever. But this story gets strange. The video online of the divers encountering the horrifying shark statue underwater has absolutely no information with it. Additionally, nobody's been able to find any information on the shark statue at all. The video appears legit enough. It doesn't seem to be faked in the least, but from what anyone can gather, the shark doesn't exist. The best explanation is that the statue was once a movie prop that got lost in the ocean. Someone has to swim out there and document this mysterious structure. The truth needs to be revealed. One thing is for certain, bumping into this statue in the murky depths would almost be scarier than bumping into a real shark. Just look at those teeth. The gulper eel. Perhaps the most terrifying thing ever found underwater is the gulper eel. Well, maybe it's not the most terrifying animal ever, but it definitely deserves a spot on this list. This is a very freaky eel. It has a huge mouth that's larger than its body. Its mouth is also on a loose hinge, allowing the horrifying eel to swallow an animal much larger than itself. In fact, it's basically the underwater version of a pelican. Not much is known about this animal, as it lives roughly 6,000 feet beneath the surface of the ocean. There have been a few specimens found, but not nearly enough to do proper studying. Most of the images you'll find online will be artist illustrations and fuzzy photos of preserved specimens. Science clearly has a long way to go when it comes to documenting and understanding some of the rarer underwater wildlife out there. The good news is that you won't bump into one of these on your next diving adventure. Bodies of the Titanic. In 2012, photos were re-released that reminded the world of the devastating sinking of the Titanic back in 1912. After 100 years, the Titanic is still one of the most brutal accidents in history. And while there have been many expeditions down to the Titanic, there have never been any bodies found. Out of all the 1,500 people who were killed in the disaster, only 340 bodies were actually recovered directly after the ship sank. That means that somewhere lying among the debris, the wreckage, the shattered deck, the thousands of stray pieces of luggage are 1,160 bodies, or at least there used to be. These newest re-released images were taken in 2004 during a special exploration mission by Robert Ballard, the man who discovered the wreck in 1985. Lots of photographs were taken, and many of the more disturbing photos show evidence that there were definitely bodies scattered amongst the wreckage many years ago. For example, one image showed a pair of shoes very near to a tortoiseshell comb. This suggests that a victim had been lying there. So where did he and the rest of the unfortunate passengers go? Experts say that after 100 years, it's likely that animals under the sea ate the remains of the passengers. As sad as it is to say, there are probably no organic human remains left from the Titanic. All those bodies were eaten by crabs and lobsters. Which of these discoveries did you find the most terrifying? Let me know your underwater stories in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to come back soon for another awesome video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.